everyone for joining the session with us. It's a fireside chat with Stephen Shedletzky. When he first posed the fireside chat concept, I did not know what it's going on. I thought that it was not a term, it was my ESL moment. I was like, what does that mean, Rod? Does he mean that like we need to ask him like quick fire, like rapid fire question? Like what does it mean? Like, do we need to do something about this? And and then later on I figured it out. So
we need a screen with just a fireplace that we can.
Yeah, that was the original concept. So yeah, maybe
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we can figure that out. Yeah, and it's like this fireside. It's quite funny because on one side it's the symbol that you have at Simon Sinek, right? You have the fireside, how you ignite, and right now for us it's quite interesting also because that's how we are starting to see things, because we're together just around the same thing, like the same vision, or we can call it sometimes just cause, but we're sharing the same vision of the world, what we want to see in the future and how we can impact it. So thanks for being here. We really appreciate this.
Yeah, I'm pumped to be with you guys.
We have our first question in the chat. Didn't Churchill or FDR start fireside chats?
So to just kick off the conversation, we thought of, because a lot of us know like what Stephen is doing. It's a very familiar face if we do follow Simon Sinek. And however, I personally, or some of you personally, have not heard too many things about how Stephen Shedletzky was like before the Y. And our WYRED event is about inspiring ordinary people doing extraordinary things and being relatable. So we would really appreciate, Stephen, if you want to share your journey of Y with us.
Sure. I'm an ordinary dude who I've gotten lucky. One of my mentors in university said luck is laboring under correct knowledge. So maybe there's a little bit of that too. So, I mean, my story, I don't think is too different from many others. I made it into business school kind of by accident. I went to a great university a couple hours down the road from me called Western University. I took a business class because everyone else was. So I thought, hey, that might come in use at some point. And I had this amazing lecturer, a guy by the name of Anuj Chandarana, who's a friend and mentor still to this day. And I forgot what prompted me to go up to him after class one day, but he essentially encouraged me to apply to a specific program called the Ivy School of Business. It's like a 2-year undergraduate case-based, designed after the Harvard model undergraduate business thing. And I went, okay. And I applied and I got in and I went, all right, I guess I'm doing this. And at that time I was studying health sciences. I was interested in healthcare management, mostly because I have a dad and a sister who are doctors. I knew I didn't want to be a doctor, but I would be happy to be a healthcare administrator because maybe I could be their boss one day. Like that was cool. But I kind of realized that path would take much more school. And though I was okay at school, I didn't necessarily like school. So this Ivy thing came up and it was kind of a fast track. Like I could start my career and not have to get a master's because I didn't really want to get a master's, and still don't. And so I always gravitated towards the people leadership strategy side of business. I think I'm allergic to a balance sheet. And I know it's important to understand it, but it's just not my groove. And I ended up getting a job out of formal campus recruitment, which meant I won business school. Because you always compare yourself to the people that are around you. And I got recruited and I got hired by a leadership development program at a large oil and gas company. Not that I cared about the industry, but I cared about leadership. I just neglected to ask them how they define the term leadership. Turns out there's no standard definition. They defined it more by authority, P&L, whereas I defined it, and I think the way we all define it, which is looking out for those in your span of care, helping people grow. And it took me about 4 or 5 months to realize that I hated it there. On day one of my job, 1,000 people were let go post-merger. So I was walking in as many more were walking out. And I saw the impact of that on people's, not just their work product, but their physical and mental health. Rates of cancer, car accidents, like people weren't well. I remember clearly Brenda, someone who was a veteran of the organization for some 30 plus years, convinced that the pink slip was going to come to her cubicle next. She was scared for her life. I came back from Christmas vacation. I took some time off. I came back to my desk on January 2, 3, 4 with not much to do. And I opened up LinkedIn. There were firewalls against opening up Facebook on my work computer, but I could open up LinkedIn for some reason. And a friend of mine wrote, "I'm speaking at a conference soon. Here's a question for you. What is your organization doing to engage and retain millennial employees?" And I went, oh my God, they're not. Like I was in this role and I was prompted with this question of something I care deeply about. And I realized my organization wasn't actively doing it. Not to their fault. They were like mid-merger coming out of it. But I realized that I didn't feel fulfilled, didn't feel engaged, didn't feel like I wanted to be there. And 2 weeks after I wrote back to her, I was speaking at that conference, sharing my perspective as a millennial on what it means to feel inspired, safe, fulfilled, what it means to feel engaged and want to be loyal and to be retained. And so I kind of just very much by accident just started doing the things that I cared about. I knew I enjoyed speaking, but more than that is I found a cause bigger than me to contribute to. So Ying, I know you wanted me to touch on this, which I can do now, like speak about how that collided with Simon, if that makes sense. Keep going. I'm aware that I've been blabbing for 5 minutes, so. Okay, Barbara says clap, so I'll keep going. I scared off her partner, but I'll keep going. So that same person who made that post on LinkedIn asking about millennial engagement and retention, she introduced me to someone, a guy by the name of James Powell. It was June or July. We traded emails, and within the next day, he and I had dinner. Like, when does that ever happen? And I said to him, I was still working at that first company. I said, quote, "I'm afraid to do marketing," because they were moving me into a marketing role, "for an organization that I don't believe what they sell and how they sell it." And he went, "Watch this video." And he emailed me Simon Sinek's How Do Great Leaders Inspire Action TED Talk. And I proceeded to procrastinate for 2 months and didn't watch it. And then finally did. And I remember where I was sitting in my parents' home at the kitchen table. And I watched it and I went, everything this guy says, I know to be true. He says it in a simple way. And I kind of just had this like puppy dog, like, haven't thought about it that way. But like, yeah, absolutely. And I, the next day just started drawing circles on napkins and telling anyone who would listen about this thing called the why. I was let go from that first company, not for performance reasons, but I was mentoring a number of interns, a disproportionate number of which turned down full-time job offers, citing conversations with this guy. So I was let go, and it was a good move because I was toxic to the culture because I hated it. And I was already trying to, I had 9 toes out, but they just gave me an excuse to leave. And I went to a conference to hear Malcolm Gladwell speak, author of Outliers, Tipping Point, David vs. Goliath. And Simon spoke just before Malcolm. I didn't even know. And when I saw Simon in person, his passion was visceral, and I just got hooked. And I bumped into him into the hall after, by accident. I asked him a question during the Q&A. It was like 1,000 people in the room. I asked him a question around, essentially, how do you, like, we all want authenticity, but how do we ensure we're being authentic? And his answer to me was, the why and the how, they're amorphous. Like we have our why statements, but like the way we find meaning in them is the stories behind them, but we can lose track of it. And so his response to me was, surround yourself with physical symbols that remind you of what you care about, your why, your hows. So I have pictures of my grandfather. I have my grandfather's initial ring that he gave to me before he passed away. I have this little infinity toy thing. I have the color orange. I have all these little symbols around me that remind me what I care about, such that I'm more likely to do the things, especially when I'm inclined not to want to do them. And so I bumped into him in the hall after. I sent him a LinkedIn message back when he was on LinkedIn. I now lead the team that responds to the messages on LinkedIn. I wrote a little quick blog post article on his talk and said that I was going to read his book. He wrote back to me saying, I hope you enjoy the book more than the talk. And I said, probably not likely, because I don't really like reading much. And I read his book and I just became obsessed. I just Googled his name and listened to every interview that I could, every video. I just gobbled it all up. I kind of learned how to help other people find their why by watching him do it in interviews. And then I wrote him another email after I felt I had done enough research to justify writing back. And I wrote what I call a 5-paragraph or network with intent email, which is, here's how we know each other, so that it's some sort of warm connection, not just random. Here's why you inspire me. If you get this right and they're legit, they'll keep reading. Here's what I'm inspired to do because of said inspiration in point 2. Here's how I make up you can help me. Can I buy you a coffee or talk for 15 minutes? And I got a response immediately saying that Simon no longer responds to his professional email. It was an autoresponder. And long story short, I ended up forming relationships with some people on his team. I had a chance to go for a walk with him and his family in New York at the MS Walk in 2010 or 11. And just right time, right place. So as Simon and others on the team have said to me, I'd be doing this work with or without them, which is the truth. And I'm grateful that I'm able to do it with them for the opportunity and platform that it affords. Because we're all trying to make this world that Simon puts into clear words. We're all trying to do our part. So I'm lucky that I get to do it with him and with you guys. So that's my long answer to your first short question.
That's amazing. One thing that caught me within your story on the side of you started this other company, right? You said they let you go because you were kind of like toxic to the culture, because you kind of hated it, but also because you were trying to help others to move along. So how do we move along those lines of helping others and kind of be like being toxic, but in a nice way, right? How do we cope with it sometimes? Because I'm pretty sure that in at work, there are like different companies or with different kinds. Sometimes people are thinking and having those thoughts, but they kept silent and they don't like speak them out.
So I mean, I'm seeing your question in 2 ways. One is, so there's kind of 2 situations that come to mind. One is, you know, if you're toxic within a culture that isn't right for you, versus are you having dissonance in a culture that should be for you, but there's an incongruence between who they say they are and the actual lived experience. So, you know, in the first scenario, I shouldn't have been at that company because it wasn't a right environmental fit. Now, the first person I made wrong was me, because it was the first time in my life I had made a choice and it wasn't working out and I wasn't motivated. And so the first person I made wrong was me. What's wrong with me? Fortunately, I figured out, oh, it's not me. It's that the environment here and the values and beliefs here are inconsistent with who I am, what I care about. could be good for other people, isn't necessarily a bad or evil place. You know, could have that debate too. But it wasn't for me. Versus, you know, in full transparency, our team and culture ain't perfect. Like, we're not immune to the stuff that we talk about, but I've learned that the test of a culture isn't how idyllic and perfect it is. It's what do you do when conflict and tension arises? And are you rewarded for speaking up, sharing your opinion, saying that I'm struggling? Like, we preach a big message. When people say, I'm struggling with this, or I need help, or there's an incongruence, is it met with finger pointing and hush and you're wrong? Or is it met with, tell me more, I value you, I want to know about your experience, let's work on this? No one here is perfect, but we believe, like, the thing that I love about our team is among many things, is Simon admits the movement of the message is more important than him. He is but a pawn in this game. And so he isn't more important than me. I'm not more important than him. And collectively, the infinite game we're all contributing to is more important than all of us. We are all but soldiers in this crusade trying to help advance a more inspired, safe, and fulfilled world. So, you know, Rod, I see it as, are you an anomaly inside of a culture that isn't for you? Or are you experiencing tension in a culture that is for you? And are you rewarded for attempting to be the leader that you wish you had? Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Does anyone want to piggyback on that one, or just go ahead and unmute you?
We do have several questions in the chat if you'd like to start taking a look at those.
Sure, I'd love to hear them from the horse's mouth.
Barbara,
so we actually, actually, Barbara raised a question that is somewhat related to what you talked about, your company culture. So we know that Simon Sinek company Inc. has reached a large audience by this point. So her question is, along all these years, after meeting so many people looking for their why, looking for new idea and inspiration, what have you guys learned from these encounters?
Well, I mean, when we started these workshops, we didn't expect this to happen, which is what you guys are doing right now. The sort of wonderful byproduct is community has formed, which is awesome. And was it the notes to inspire this morning that a community is a group of people who agree to grow together? That's what this is. And so that's one cool thing. Hey, Lee, what's up, bro? So, I mean, a really cool thing is that just the natural result is that community is formed. The other thing that I've learned, which is, you know, I wish we were bigger. I wish we had more resources. I wish we could just hire thousands of people and like all bring everyone in and like do this together, and we're just not there. And so my dad had a colleague. My dad had a student, a friend of his in grade 8. And they had this very sort of a hippie English teacher who encouraged, you know, self-expression. And so the class clown made up a philosopher by the name of Gaucho Santone, and would write, and this was before Wikipedia. So he would write like powerful quotes on the whiteboard before the teacher would walk in, but she wanted to respect everyone's sort of privacy. And she would ask like, who wrote this? Don't tell me. And this guy would constantly write like these profound quotes and credit it to Gaucho Santone. And the one quote that stands out as a memory, and he just made this guy up, but the one quote that stands out is, we live in a society in which we demand to be led but refuse to follow. And I think it's so profound. And something that we've learned, I mean, I've been with Simon for 9 years. The first 2 years I spent responding to fan email, and I've led that team for many years, and I see the notes that people write in. And the thing that I've learned is that for a movement to grow, it must belong to the people who join it, not the people who lead it. And so for everyone who's inspired by this message, as much as I wish we had an open job board of tons of people who could join formally, we just don't have it yet. And we may never have it, but we need people inspired by Simon's ideas to go live it in their own right, with their friends, with their family, with their colleagues, to live the message for the people to the left and the right of them. And if enough of us do that, we will change the world for the better, because you never know, that person who's a friend or the person who you mentor, they could one day become your boss, and vice versa. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned is the people who get this the most find another friend who gets it, and then they just do something with it, like so many of you are doing. So that's what is top of heart and mind for me on that question from Barbara.
Barbara, do you have any follow-up?
No, it's quite clear. It's such a great topic. What can we all do together? Because it is about being together and better together. And it's just fantastic that we are at this stage together and we can make a difference.
I have a question. Thank you, Shed, for being here. I was curious, as you were sharing your story, what would you consider some of the most important training or growth experiences that set you up for manifesting your dreams and kind of recognizing and acting on those opportunities when they presented themselves?
Cool. Thanks, Kelly. I've done a lot of training with an organization called CTI, the Coaches Training Institute. I went and did my life and leadership coaching work with them. I also did their leadership program. I did that in would have been 2011, 12-ish. And that really taught me a lot. Taught me a lot about self-awareness, taught me a lot about teamwork. And though a lot of the jargon they use, so it's that, and then your previous question, what's the best advice that I've received or shared? A lot of it has come from Simon. So the thing that I loved my learning and education and how I transformed and grew with CTI, part of the issue was the jargon they used was too coachy. The language they used only spoke to people who were already convinced and were already part of the choir. And so when I went and met Simon in New York and went for a walk with him, I had a lot of that jargon. And he said to me, he said, if you speak like a scientist, only scientists will understand you. But if you speak like a truck driver, both truck drivers and scientists will understand you. And he said, the goal is to keep it simple. When you speak in a simple way, people can understand you. When people can understand something, they can repeat it. And when they repeat it, they can make a change. And so I grew so much through that leadership development program. And yet coupling that with speak in a way that the maximum number of people can understand you, which means that they can do something with it. I mean, this is the criticism that Brene Brown gets from the academic community is you take these complex ideas and you make them too simple and too easy to understand. Yeah, duh. That way people can do something with it. And if they're so inclined, they can read more about the scientific papers that prove everything I say to be, based in efficacy. So that's a big thing. And the other that Simon's taught me that I constantly try to work on is 3/4 of an answer is better than an answer and a half.
Beth, do you have I saw you had posted a question.
Yes, I did. And actually Shed started to answer it. And my question was, how has your why evolved over time?
Thanks, Beth. Hi.
Hi.
So when I joined our team, I outsourced my why discovery to Simon. I just went like, yeah, that's mine. And it turns out that's not very empowering. because it turns out I'm my own person. And though he and I share strengths, we are different. And I handed my power away. I didn't have sort of my own identity. So after being on the team for a couple of years, I finally did my why discovery. I went through the same process that we guide people through. I gathered stories. I shared stories with Kim from our team. She reflected back. And so, Beth, my answer is the essence and meaning of my why hasn't changed, but the words that I use to describe it have. And the strength of our why, whether as an individual or an organization, is not out on how many great stories we have from our past, but how many more are we making every day, inspired by what it is. And so the first draft of my why was to connect with people in meaningful ways so that we live in a more fulfilled world. And it was like liberating as heck. I was like, yes, I have it. That's it. I had some hows. It was wonderful. And then that verb to connect, it didn't feel wrong. It just wasn't as right as it could be. And so I had a choice. I could lock myself in a room with the thesaurus and just look at it and find the right word, or I could live it. And I've learned that I'd rather live my why for 1 year than know the perfect words for 10. It's not about the words. The words are a tool, but more important is living it. Like Martin Luther King Jr. never went through a why discovery. He just lived it. Steve Jobs never went through a why discovery. He just lived it. And so I took what I knew and I just lived it. And I literally led a Start With Why workshop. This would have been 6 or 7 years ago. And at the end of it, a complete random. I know that she is female and I know that she was middle-aged. That's all I know about her. She came up to me. I couldn't pick her out of a lineup today, but she came up to me and said, wow, that was so engaging. You are so engaging. And I got goosebumps. It was as if it was the first time I heard that word ever. And I went, oh my God, that's it. And because I lived my why, it's the friends exercise. I lived my why for someone, they reflected it back to me. And because I just lived it, I got the words. And so now my why is to engage with people in meaningful ways so that we connect with depth and live in a more fulfilled world. And I added the connect with depth because yes, I'm inspired by living in a more fulfilled world, but I don't know what I can do to help advance that. And the things that I can do are engage with people and have people connect more deeply with themselves, with others in the world around them. That's how I will help move the needle for people to feel more fulfilled by their everyday, which is using our strengths to contribute to something bigger than ourselves.
Cool. That's a good story we didn't hear before.
Yeah, that's what you get in the Fireside.
Yeah, and like piggybacking on that question, on that story also, I have just one quick one before I give space to Karika to make her question. It's like, you were already working at Simon Sinek, right? But yet you just said that you didn't feel kind of like empowered. And what were the things that within those 6 years to find your why that was not outsourced? What are the things that help you build that confidence?
So, I mean, I was on the team for 2+ years and then sort of finally did my why discovery and found it. I don't know if this answers your question head on, Rod, but it's what comes to mind. So when I joined the very first thing that I did with this team was did the Start With Why podcast. David Mead and I did 16 or something episodes of the Start With Why podcast. That was the first thing that I did, and I loved it. It was an opportunity to learn more about all the concepts and represent the brand. It was amazing. So I did it with David. David was our first ever person to go out and speak on Simon's behalf without it being Simon. And so as David went out, someone had to fill his shoes. He was doing customer service, fan email, bit of product development. And so it was offered to me. Many of the things in that role didn't fit my hows or strengths, but it was a way to contribute. What I experienced in those first couple of years, and it happened very quickly, is like, I'm good at writing an email. I'm just not good at writing 15 of them. It's just not my strength. I'm creative. I can't predict when I'm going to be productive. Like, it's just like the type of person I am. And the job required consistency. I'm not very good at consistency. And so I had this experience where I felt unfulfilled at the fulfillment company. And I had a choice. I could either choose to be right or I could choose to be better. And there were many times that I chose to be right. It just wasn't leading me to where I wanted to go. So a shift very much happened for me right around year 2, where for the longest time I was so focused on, I'm not contributing in the way that I want to contribute. I'm not contributing in the way that I want to contribute. I have more talent. I have more potential. I want to do more things that excite and energize and inspire me, like stuff like this and speaking and interviewing and all these things. But if I'm honest, was I really doing it to advance the cause, or was I kind of doing it for me? A bit of both, but probably more for me. And so I made this conscious choice where I was interviewing with some other organizations. I had an opportunity to join another organization as a coach. And I kind of made a choice of either, do I give it my all or do I just leave or take on something else? And I had a conversation with our CEO, Kim, at the time. And I said, I essentially made the conscious choice to live Simon's message. Don't complain, contribute. And I said, I have something in my sphere of control here. It's not something that I love, but if I do it really well, maybe they'll trust me and give me an opportunity to do more. And I literally said that very same thing at our team retreat with myself, Simon, and 2 other people on our team. And I said that. And Simon, I think we were talking about what's something you were proud from this past year and what's something you want to do for next year. And I said the thing that I was proud. And the thing that I was proud of was not complaining and just contributing and owning the things that are mine to own. And he said, and that's what's going to allow you to grow. And so when I just decided to not focus on what I hated and focused on what I could contribute to, things totally transformed. And they gave me more trust and they gave me more opportunities. So that's what comes to mind. What do you do when you feel disempowered? Share openly, so long as you feel like you're, I think a strong culture, and we do this a lot on our team, is there's a difference between suffering and struggling. Suffering is a solo activity. Struggling is when you can say amongst your tribe and team, I'm struggling with this. I'm not saying solve it for me, but I'm saying it aloud such that we can create the condition where I can solve it, and I invite you to help me.
Cool. Thank you. And regarding that question, that answer actually, Karike has a very good question that she sent, and she can do it herself because it's going to be with more nuance. Karike?
We have to unmute you, or you have to unmute yourself.
Yep. Oh, she's mute.
There. I'm afraid I wrote it so long ago, I don't remember what it was.
I would read it. It's like, how do you find a healthy culture before you are immersed in it and have your livelihood dependent on it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you get into a healthy culture without actually jumping into a job and then being, stuck in it? And then if you try to get out, you have repercussions.
Great question, Karika. I don't think we find a healthy culture all the time. Sometimes we have to create it. Like if we just wait to find it, it might be a long wait, but you always have the choice to create it. And you can't.
What if you're not ready to create it?
Ask for help and get help. Work on the skills of leadership. I mean, what does it mean to create a healthy culture? A healthy culture means that you believe the people around you have your back and you have their back. And so you cannot control what the senior most leader does. No number of anonymous books sent to them are going to do anything, because books make great coasters. Find the people to the left of you and the people to the right of you that you care about and say, I value you. I want you to feel that you're appreciated, valued, heard, and that you can grow here. And I want to do everything in my power to help you do that. And when you commit to that service, guess what happens? They end up serving you in return because you are leader. And leader is not title, leader is behavior. So if you want it,
Choice.
create it. You know, like Lee is my closest colleague. He does it for me, I do it for him, right? We're a safe space for each other. I vent to him, he vents to me, and then we go, all right, enough venting, let's talk about what we're gonna do for each other and for this team. So, yeah, I think to find it, we got to go on a search and got to create it and manifest it, and try to do it where you are now, and see what happens. But we aren't loyal to companies, we're loyal to people. So you might help someone to the left or right of you grow. They might get a promotion and say, I want to bring you along, or they may go to another organization, I want to bring you along. So I would just encourage you to do everything in your power to create it. And when you create it, you'll get it yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah, more simple in an answer, as Daniel said, but that's what it is.
He just said that you totally vent more than he does.
Yeah, true.
Just for the record.
True.
But Jules has a good question.
A question from
right?
YouTube. Yeah.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, always.
Okay, one question is, any paternity advice for younger generations based on your why?
Paternity advice, like how to be a good parent?
That's how I interpret it, yes.
Okay, good. So a couple of things that come to mind, and then I'm not the only parent here, so I'd love to hear, Julia, yours and others as well. And you don't even need to be a parent to have advice on this. So a couple things. So I think our why gives us a center, and our why and hows, our golden circle, and our golden circle gives us legacy. So the very reason I do the work that I do is because when my firstborn in 14, 15, however many years goes to get her first job, I want her to join an organization and be led by leaders who care about her, who don't see her as an asset for output, who see her as a human being to nurture. I do my work such that when my kid gets a job, she experiences the opposite of what I experienced. She experiences a place where she can feel inspired, feel safe, and feel fulfilled, and feel that she is joining an organization that is an extension of her family, that she is joining and working with people who care about her as a person, and give her the inputs that allow them collectively to get the outputs that they wish to get. The other thing is, I mean, oh my Lord, I thought I was a patient person until I had children. I've met my Hulk parent. I don't like them very much. And you know, my 18-month-old pushes buttons, but that's just because he's 18 months. My 4.5-year-old pushes buttons because I've created a mini-me. And as Lee knows Sophie well, she's me. She is gregarious. She's got curls. She's funny, and she knows exactly, like, all the like charming stuff that I can do on adults and like woo them doesn't work on her. And it's the hardest thing and the best thing ever, because it's the ultimate test of leadership. Of how do I apologize when I act out of character? How do I constantly try to get better and grow? And a really good buddy of mine named Matt Todd, he and I are father leader buddies. We have calls every week. And I talk about my struggles as a parent with him as he does with me. And he's reminded me that the very fact I'm critical on myself means that I don't know if I'm a good parent, but I strive to be. And isn't that just what it means to be a good parent, is that you strive to be a good one? There's intent. And that when you step left or right outside of, you know, what it means to be a good parent, you're aware of it and you try to course correct. I had a good conversation with my dad last night. He's a physician. He's worked in the prison system for more than 40 years. And he said that he's yelled at an inmate about 6 times in his career. And he said every time he does it, he says, never again. He did it the first time. He said, that just made things worse. I'm not going to do that again. He's done it 6 times in 40 years. I think that's pretty good. And still, every now and then, someone pushes his buttons just right that, you know, Hulk doctor comes out and he goes, never again. And he'll apologize, or he'll say that wasn't the best approach. Let's try that again, you know? And so, you know, the whole goal of parenting, at least I see it, is I want to raise a kid that contributes to society, and that when the time is appropriate, we're genuine friends. And I've developed that with my own parents, and like, I can't wait to be a parent to my kid when they're 30, but they're 4.5, and I gotta get it right until they're at least 18. So working on that. I'm not sure if that helps, Julia. It's a great question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've probably got time for like maybe 1 question, possibly 2, if you can. Yes,
yeah.
We have around like 3 to 4 minutes total. So we can prep for the next one.
Right. I think Connie White sent in her question. Connie, would you like to unmute yourself and ask that?
Thank you, Stephen. My question is, you know, like 70% of people in the workplace are disengaged today. What advice would you give to them? And what advice would you give to the leaders? Because we're losing so much, billions of dollars because of disengagement.
Yeah, I've even heard the number as high as 85 or 87%, Connie. You know,
okay.
Yeah, those are the Gallup. I mean, regardless, we can all agree the vast majority of people aren't actively engaged and do not love their work. So it's a brilliant question. So every single leadership development program I've ever encountered all starts with the same module, self-awareness. Everyone. Like, find me a leadership program out there that doesn't start with know thyself. Mm-hmm. So for any individual, you know, I think so often we're painted a picture of what success is when we become adults that is more based on material than based on values. Mm-hmm. And our you know, our why is fully formed by the time we're about 16 to 20, both on our brain development and enough life experience. It's why our 20s are so pivotal, because we make decisions about the way we're going to live and lead our life that are either in line with our values and beliefs or aren't in line with our values and belief and are more selfishly or materials based, or we follow what our parents or society wants of us, which is get a good job, have it be secure, whatever, right? And so first and foremost, if you are one of those people who feel disengaged in your work, I think the first place you start with is, well, what would engage you? And you can play the opposite game, which I've done, which is I feel disengaged. So for what reason am I feeling disengaged? Cool. You know, I don't feel seen, heard, or valued. I'm not doing a lot of things that are in line with my strengths. Great. So I find what's missing, play the opposite game. But commit to this personal work of strengths finders and find your why and, you know, all of these things, which often requires another human being to reflect and grow with, which is a definition of community again. So yeah, find what you care about and then actively pursue it, which doesn't mean you need to quit your job, because you can be fulfilled bagging groceries. Newsflash, right? It doesn't matter what you do, it matters why you do it. So I think we need to know thyself and then find people who appreciate for us who we are at our best and make it happen, both for yourself and the people around you. For leaders, if you're in a position of authority, know that you have a choice to be a leader or to be a manager. Managers care about compliance and throughput and output. Leaders care about the development of human beings, knowing that when people grow, the organization grows. And so you have a choice. And it's hard because there's always pressure from somewhere, whether it's the person above you or the market or whatever, or survival. There's always pressure. But do you believe that the inputs give you the outputs, or you just go for the outputs? And when you just go for the outputs, it might work for a little, just as a snowmobile can operate in sand, just not very well, and it takes repair, and you're going to have to get a new one. And so you can drive your people for a period of time before the people either burn out or say sayonara, and you got to start again, and that's expensive. So, I mean, the argument for leaders to do this is a no duh. And it's a both. It's a both of know thyself, pursue it, but for leaders as well. And realize that when you sign up to be a leader, do you know what you're signing up for? Because it's hard work. It's very hard work. Newsflash, human beings are messy. You know, and we're not human doings, we're human beings. And we do need to care about people's feelings and see that that they are seen and heard. So, yeah.
Thank
that
you.
would be my, yeah, I think it's a great question.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Speaking of
sorry,
sayonara.
we gotta wrap up. We still have some more questions pending. We're sorry that we didn't get to all of them, but we do have Shed's contact information on wire.live. If you go to the speaker and then go to the bio, and you can connect with Shed, and hopefully that Shed will. I'm sure Shed will answer your question because he's very good at that.
And we're
Happy to.
And also what we could try maybe is like we're gonna have all the questions that we have here.
Yeah.
So we can send them, and then he could reply like the bulk of them.
Right.
So thanks for being here, Shed.
Thank
It's been
you.
amazing.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for the invitation. I hope it helps, and see you around.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Enjoy
much.
your weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
And
I also don't
you.
believe Lee
And-
ate that many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Make him prove it.
we look forward to that one.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Here.
We'll take a quick break and we will be back in just a few minutes with Christine to hear about bridging gaps.
16.